We are on the coalface. Real estate agents are seeing it before anyone else in the marketplace. Don't worry about auction clearance rates. Don't worry about the media and what they're saying the property market's doing, because agents are right on that coalface, and we're going to tell you what's happened in the last 2 weeks to the property market. Stay tuned.
Good morning, Mark.
Morning, Billy. How are you, bud?
Very well. Yourself? Little switcheroo there?
Good. Switcheroo. Good weekend?
Very good. I was telling Mark off air that I was out with Mum partying.
That's
First
nuts.
time in a little while we've done that.
And Mum was partying harder than you.
Yeah, just about. I had to catch up. She was coming off the back of a lawn bowls win, Mark. That's why.
Oh my God! Lawn bowls, it's going off at the moment, isn't it?
It's come back. I don't know. Yeah, it's really fitting in with the new trends. It seems to be a good social game. I haven't played, so I think it's recommended.
Lawn bowls and alcohol.
Yeah, great mix. Nice and social.
A wicked mix.
Easy.
Yeah. Now the property market. What's happening?
Yeah, you're saying don't get caught up in the news or the tabloids. Just come straight to your local agent. We're on the coalface with all the buyers, sellers, people looking for rentals. So it's good. We've seen a slight change. The question is, has the Sydney market cooled off for Christmas a little bit? We spoke about your last opportunity to get into a property for rent and for sale the other day, and we've noticed that people are really making a push finally for their rentals to get in. You've only got probably a couple weeks, one more week or two. For Christmas, you might have just missed it to settle on a property, but make a good start to the new year. What have you noticed with days on market for sale? We'll look at a few factors that could give us a bit of an insight, Mark.
So days on market is from when the first property is first listed onto the open market through realestate.com or domain.com.au in a public way, how long it stays on that domain until it's actually sold and exchanged. So what I've noticed is that is sitting at about, it's pretty consistent. It's sitting at about 23, 26 days in most suburbs across the northern beaches, which is, believe it or not, that's a number that's been fairly consistent the last 6 months.
Yeah. Okay. What's a normal time frame you set up with people that are selling at the start, vendors at the start, in terms of your campaign? For people that don't know.
28.
4 weeks. Yeah.
4 weeks. Yeah.
And how do you break that down?
So pretty much I've launched the property market through the major portals. We're a little bit different. We do a pre-portal boost where we do that for about 7 days to 10 days, and we sell probably someone like Lisa Novak sells probably 60% of her properties that way. But then if you want to introduce more exposure to the property, then you'd go over to realestate.com domain, and that's when that clock starts on that 28-day campaign.
Okay. Yeah. And then you're looking for feedback in the market and reach closer to a decision for anyone that's
Absolutely, and bear in mind that last week is a negotiation and due diligence, building inspection, strata inspection, stuff like that, and a finance approval. So, it really, if you consider that it takes a week to go to lock in a property, or 9 days, then that's pretty much on the market only for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, before you got an offer accepted.
Yeah. Okay. And do you find people making offers at the start, and is it normal to just say, we've only been on market for a week or so. Just give us a bit of time to get some more feedback, or how does that normally get received from vendors and agents?
Sorry, when a purchaser asks that? Or
Yeah, so if you get an offer really early on in the campaign, is it normal for a response to be, we've just started our campaign?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think at the end of the day, if you've just got an offer which is just so compelling, which is just way above the expectations of an owner, then they just release the property, they just sell the property. But if then is like thinking, you know what, I think that's sort of an average price, can we get more? Then you may give it another couple of days and see how it goes. Which is interesting. But has the property Sydney market cooled for Christmas? That's the $1 million question.
Do you want to use your analogy that we talked about?
Absolutely. The property market was, in the last quarter, probably the last 2 quarters, an observation. During a lockdown, the property market loved lockdown. COVID-1, particularly COVID-2, the property market loved lockdown. But basically, towards the end of lockdown, the property market was doing 120, no more than 140 an hour. That's what the property market was doing. COVID-2, the last COVID that we just went through.
We lost you right in the middle. Just repeat the first part.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying we lost you right in the middle of your of the famous one-liner. Earth to Mark. Mark was saying at the start of lockdown, we were going down like a freeway at 140 miles an hour, and now we're going down the same freeway at 60 k's an hour. So look, it's cooled off slightly, maybe not quite as much as 50% or more, but it has cooled off slightly, and we're still traveling in the right direction. We also said,
that's for sure. That's for sure. Yeah. It's still heading in the right direction at a reasonable speed.
Yeah. And we were saying it's better to slow down as such, rather than have a complete, the market completely bottom out in a month or 2 time, or even now, Yeah.
Well, you don't want to be going along at 120 kilometres an hour in a property market and slam the car into reverse. You don't want to be doing that. And that was always a threat, that the bubble was going to burst and we would be throwing the automobile into reverse. It's good to see it slow down a little bit. It's good to see a little bit of steam come out. It's a more balanced market. It's easier to buy and it's easier to sell in that market.
Which in itself has opened up a lot of opportunity for people that were on the border of selling, but just knew if they wouldn't be able to buy somewhere. So that itself has brought new properties onto the market for both rent and for sale, and just opened up opportunity for everyone. Everyone is won sort of out of this in a funny kind of way.
Now, what's interesting is New South Wales versus Vic versus Queensland. New South Wales is definitely seeing the car slow down from 120 kilometres an hour to 60 kilometres an hour. Victoria is seeing the same thing by what we're seeing out there. Queensland, from what agents are seeing out there, seems to be still sharing the love, still is and again, we're putting it in terms of kilometres per an hour of a car, but Queensland seems to still be doing that 100 k's an hour.
It's interesting. And do you think that's because they maybe started slightly later, Mark, or they're just still on that path?
Yeah, I think Queensland enjoys a lot of Victorian money and a lot of New South Wales money, and I think a lot of people are heading to Queensland to kill their debt. and keep their same job because their work allows for it. So I think certain sectors that people work in where they can work are continuing to do that, and off to Queensland they go. But I think that they're taking their money out of Sydney. They've sold on a 6, 8, 12-week settlement. A lot of customers I know, and they're still making that purchase up there, and they're a little bit constricted because they can't get there. So it's still pumping in Queensland for Queensland prices.
Yeah. And another little factor to consider is guide prices. Now, every property obviously goes on the market with a price in mind. Are you finding properties are transacting on the guide, still going above, or even at a discounted rate? What's your experience there?
On the guide, so I think there was a there was everything was traditionally going 10 or 15% more, whereas I think that now at the moment stuff's going a bit closer to the guide. We're finding buyers are still used to the 10 or 15% plus on top of the owner's expectations. So sometimes we're being really aggressive with those guides at the moment, just to meet the market. But Lisa's brought up a really good point, Billy.
Yeah, prestige market is still thriving, and we spoke about this about prestige property offline, and I asked Mark a question. Do you think that when in the news when the property market says it's cooled off 5% or taken a hit 5%, does prestige property take the same hit? And your answer was
absolutely.
Yeah.
So
for such a huge amount of money, I was obviously curious to know, I know on average it takes into account all property, but we're still operating in a sort of a niche market in some ways.
We are, and look, ladies and gentlemen, like, we're fortunate to have this hot off the press news from a bunch of real estate agents. When we're talking about the property market, we're probably talking about a week or two. We're reporting last weekend, which nobody has the ability to do. Not media, not websites. We know exactly what's happening in that last weekend. When we're talking about the prestige property market, which can be, your $5 million plus properties, we're talking about, literally just what's happened in the last weekend or two. But Billy, it's two different types of question. I'm sure what you're saying is the property market over a quarter. Do you see the big differences in prices, or over a year, in particular, mid to long term, for instance? The markets all sort of are pretty succinct.
Yeah.
In prestige, unit, house. But there is a bit of a difference with houses and units at the moment, guys. Watch out, because houses have done 200% in a lot of suburbs in the last 10 years. That's 4x, particularly in the suburbs around the northern beaches. But the units have only done 130%. That's 2.5x, 2.3x. So at the moment, there's never been a difference between houses and units in the last 30 years that I've been a real estate agent. But now there's a gap between houses and units that I reckon will get filled a little bit.
Yeah. And final questions, tie it back. So we've talked about the property market cooling off a little bit for Christmas. How does this compare to the time or the worst property conditions you've ever operated in, Mark?
Yeah, great question. I think GFC 1 was a hard time. GFC 2, when that second wave of GFC came through, was a hard time. The recession in 93 was a hard time. There was a hangover from a booming property market. There was 1983, the property market doubled. 1987, the property market doubled. in the early 90s, it corrected pretty hard. To answer your question, basically those other property markets corrected by about 10 to 15% over about 50 to 60 years of Sydney pricing. When there has been a correction, it's been about a 10 to 15% correction. We haven't seen that sort of correction. We're still seeing growth in the market. We're just not seeing the explosive growth that we saw. Hence our example of the property car travelling at the property bus travelling at 120 kilometres an hour, and now the property bus is only travelling at 60 kilometres an hour. So I think it's actually really nice just to see that steam come out a little bit. I'm same as Lise. I don't love a roaring market.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. It looks like this balanced market, and balanced is probably the key word, is just giving everyone a little bit more opportunity, and just taking the heat out of it.
Well, Billy, the property bus was doing 120, 140 kilometres an hour, and you tried to get on it, and you did.
Well, I don't know. It was almost like it was a bit of luck in a funny way. I tried to get on a DY mark, and they didn't even open the door. They didn't even stop. They just carried down the bridge.
You just chased it into the city.
Yeah. They didn't even stop. But yeah, I think you'll find a bit more luck now.
Yeah, and look, I think it's interesting because coming into while we finish off today, I think coming out of lockdown, people sort of got a bit more social. Coming into summer, coming into Christmas, I think people, sellers, and maybe a little bit of buyers just sort of chillaxed a little bit. That there hasn't been that intensity, but with this new strain of COVID coming through, it's going to be interesting to see how that treats the property market if there's another COVID-3 lockdown.
That's it. Hopefully not for Christmas. Let's just get over Christmas first.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, hope we helped you with hot off the press property market status today. And if you got any questions, this is a live show, throw them at us. If there's any topics, people are sending us topics all the time to talk about. Messenger that across to us or put a message in here. Billy, anything else to finish off on?
No, that's it. Let's power through to Christmas, and we're nearly there. Finish off the year strong. I reckon this COVID strain, the government's learned how to correct their faults on the previous times. They're looking like they're onto it pretty quickly with the flights and changing the legislation pretty quickly for snap free 72-hour stay at home, all that stuff. So I think they're onto it, and let's power through to Chrissy.
We've learnt a lot. Absolutely. All right, have a great week, everyone. Thanks, Billy. Thanks for the chat.
Cheers, Mark. Pleasure.
See you guys.